Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, you can catch the Inside the Birds podcast dropping pretty much every day now. Adam and Jeff have tons of content on the podcasting network. Also, InsideTheBirds.com with the recap of all the Eagles preseason 1 action. And they join us right now to get more into it. The recap, the first preseason game in 2 years. We haven't seen preseason action in 2 years because of this doggone pandemic. Andrew Dicecco joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN to get more into it because we saw some interesting things last night. Andrew, how you doing today?
Hey, Josh, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. So, obviously, one of the bigger takeaways from the game last night was the play of the quarterback. And everyone was kind of focused in on what was going on with the quarterback. To me, I think the biggest thing, Andrew, to keep an eye on is not specifically what Hurts did, but what he didn't do. Because, people want to talk about a lot of things. But let's be realistic. Carson Wentz was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL last year. So anything better than that is a positive in many ways. So what were some of your takeaways from Jalen Hurts last night?
Well, it was obviously a limited sample size, so I always tell folks not to get carried away one way or the other. But, from what we saw, he looked poised. It was good to see him build some continuity with the tight ends. I think Dallas Goedert's going to have a big season. He missed Quez Watkins on that deep ball. But other than that, I thought that he looked confident, poised, and looks like he's building that. He's getting comfortable with his offensive weapons, and that's really all you can ask for. They thought he checked off a lot of the boxes in game 1.
One of the things I noticed when I wrote down my notes, Andrew, is that, he had 1 throwaway and 2 drops in the game last night. So you could argue that he had 4 incompletions, but 3 of them were things that technically were not really his fault. It was him basically not taking a sack, not committing a turnover. So people may say he had 4 incompletions, but I could argue 3 of them were not really demerits in his column.
Yeah, and that's really what you wanted to see. A lot of times when last season he was having a lot of explosive and electric plays, but they were often marred with careless turnovers, and he wasn't seeing the field particularly well, and fumbling the football in crucial situations, and that obviously couldn't happen. So you wanted to see him clean up on some of those areas of his game and throw the football away, not always look to elude the pocket when faced with pressure. Utilize your resources. And he looked like his footwork has come a long way. Again, it's very hard to sort of gauge where he's at in that limited sample size, and they're really not going to show much of anything on offense. But as far as just lining up and playing football, I thought he looked markedly improved.
Now, one of the things also I noticed when it came to the offense with him on the field was I think some people were surprised we didn't see him run more aside from the 1 scramble. And to me, Andrew, I think it's actually a good thing because it shows that the offense is enabling him to be more of a passer, and he didn't need to bail out to run as many times. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and you also don't want to see him run and expose himself to unnecessary hits, especially week 1 of the preseason. There's really no need for that. So, you're right. You want to see that element of his game sort of pick your spots when you're going to escape and pick up yards with your legs. There's a time and a place for that, but I think as he settles in and starts to build that trust and chemistry with the offensive players around him, which we're starting to see, you're going to start to see a more refined Jalen Hurts. And he's someone that I think isn't as proficient throwing against air. I think it's hard for him to simulate throws in practice like that. I think there really needs to be a defender there. I think he does better where he can sort of pinpoint where he wants to put the ball, and that's why you saw a much more accurate and poised quarterback when in live action.
One of the things a lot of people online were talking about was the offensive line, particularly Jordan Mailata. What were your takeaways from Mailata's first preseason game of 2021?
Yeah, much of the same. Just a dominant player, very athletic, strong, physically imposing, exactly what you want in a left tackle, and he just continues to evolve. His game continues to evolve, and that's a credit to him and Jeff Stoutland for working on taking his raw athletic traits and really molding them into a refined left tackle. And he has all-pro ability once everything starts to come together. And I think he has a lot of veteran pieces around him to sort of make that happen. So there's a lot to like with Jordan Mailata, where he's at right now.
Andrew Dicecco joining us, Football at 4 and a Happy Hour Friday, day after the Eagles' first preseason game, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Follow Andrew on Twitter at @Dicecco NFL, and check out all of his coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, sticking on the offense, also on my notes, that pass block by Jordan Howard, I got to be honest with you, no offense to the other running backs, I don't know if the other Eagles running backs can do a blitz pickup like that. I think that's part of the reason why Jordan Howard is here, because he's a veteran running back who can pick up the blitz, who can get you those grind him out yards. And it seemed like more and more with the reports coming out of camp that he is really starting to almost like put his name onto this roster very early in August.
Yeah, and that's something that Jeff and Adam have outlined pretty thoroughly throughout the Inside the Birds podcast for quite some time now. But that's why Jordan's here, man. I mean, he's not only is he a tough between the tackles runner, but from a pass protection perspective, there's that sort of comfortability there where they know that if they insert him in these situations, that he's going to step up and he sees things that maybe other players aren't necessarily as quick to adjust or really see the field in that way. So, you have to really like what he brings to the offense. And I think that's plays like that are why he's going to stick around.
Small sample size with Kenneth Gainwell, but I did like the catch and run, breaking the tackle, getting the first down. We've heard coming out of camp that he's taken a lot of passing plays, not as many running plays in camp. Do you think that's where he's going to be most useful in his first year in the NFL, is as a receiving option out of the backfield?
Yeah, I think he's a dual-purpose runner. I don't know how often he's going to be used right away. I think he's going to sort of be gradually inserted into the offense because they have so many talented guys in front of him. But he showed yesterday that the game is not too big for him. He's ready to sort of adjust his skill set, really translates to the current NFL, and I think you're going to see him sort of find his footing and find a role, 4 or 5 weeks into the season. He has a skill set that the Eagles sorely need, and that both him and Boston Scott present that change-up dynamic when you have guys like your 3-down runners and Miles Sanders and your between the tackle bruisers and Jordan Howard and possibly Kerryon Johnson.
Now, I know that Quez Watkins was a big talking point of the game last night, but I would like you to gauge my opinion on this, and you can tell me if I'm 100% wrong or not. I don't care. It's all good. But I want your opinion, okay? To me, okay, Quez Watkins scored a touchdown. But, Andrew, I feel like I see that play every week in college football. Every week there's a team in college football that runs a bubble screen, and they have a guy who can run really fast for a touchdown. Am I wrong on that?
No, that happens pretty frequently, but I would look more at how that play happened. I think it was very well blocked and schemed up, and you got to give it a credit to Quez Watkins. His explosiveness in the open field is such a dynamic trait that I think that once the Eagles figure out what role they have for him, and I think he continues to take on a larger role with, continuously stacking these solid practices and then having it translate onto the game situation. I think you're going to see him carve out a nice role there, and those are the type of plays and ways that I see him really being exploited because he has that game-breaking speed and home run ability. So that's really how he's going to fit into this offense, I think. So, I mean, it is very common, but there's a lot of things that go into a play like that. As easy as that play may have looked.
Andrew, what were your thoughts on the use of the tight ends last night? The tight ends got a lot of targets, a lot of action last night between Ertz, Goddard, Tyree Jackson, Richard Rodgers. They all were getting multiple targets.
Yeah, and that's something that I sort of had an idea was going to happen. You had so many different, all three tight ends and Tyree Jackson, they all bring different dimensions to an offense, and they have they all present different matchup issues for defenses, and I think that Jalen's become more comfortable throwing into the middle of the field, whereas last season he was really hesitant to do so. Outside of maybe Greg Ward, he was mostly looking to the outside to find those receivers, and I think now he has such a comfort level throwing to all of his weapons, and that's going to make a very lethal offense.
Andrew Dicecco joining us here, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at InsideTheBirds.com for more Eagles analysis as well from Andrew Dicecco, Adam Kaplan, and Jeff Mosher. Andrew, flip it over to the defense. I know that people look at the final score and be like, oh, man, but, realistically, if you go back and watch the game, not just be a box score looker, but, the defense actually fundamentally played all right for the first and second teams. Didn't really give up a lot of points, so they got the third team guys out there. What were your thoughts on starting with the D-line in the game last night?
Yeah, again, it's a vanilla looks. Jonathan Gannon's not going to tip his hand one way or the other. I thought that he kept it really simple, let his defensive line do what they do. Everybody handled their individual assignments without any added help. And I thought the starters looked pretty solid. And then obviously the second unit for that matter as well. And then obviously when you got to the third unit, I really thought they got gashed up the middle there with Marlon Tui, Pelotu, and Raekwon Williams particularly. Sean Bradley was active though on that second and third unit. But I mean, Jonathan Gannon isn't really going to show anything right now, so you can't really gauge one way or the other what his defensive structure is really going to look, what his ideologies are, or anything like that. So. He has a strong defensive line that can get home with just four guys, no added pressure. So it really gives him a lot of optionality in what he can do on the second and third levels. So I mean, he's in a good spot right now as he continues to find his footing as a first-year defensive coordinator.
Yeah, you mentioned Raekwon Williams. Also, T.Y. McGill got some pressure in the game last night. Do you feel like that either both McGill and Williams can make this team, or do you think it'll be one or the other?
I don't think Raekwon Williams makes the roster. But as far as T.Y. McGill, I think that he's got an inside track right now over Hassan Ridgeway. I think they probably keep 4 there. Teron Jackson's making a case for the Eagles to keep 5 defensive ends. Raekwon Williams struggled mightily yesterday against particularly defending the run, and so did Marlon Tui Pelotu. So those are 2 guys that I did not think helped themselves too well. But I think T.Y. McGill has proven he's a well-traveled defensive tackle. He's been a number of different places, but he brings there's a skill set there. He's had a good summer, and I think that he sort of can settle in as that 4th defensive tackle, veteran player, and can give them some good snaps.
Let's over to the linebackers. T.J. Edwards is beginning a lot of run in camp in part because of the injuries at linebacker. What were your thoughts on him last night in the preseason game?
Yeah, really active. Looks like he's in really good shape, flies around. Just a fundamentally sound player. I think he's carved out a role as a number 3 linebacker and special teams ace. I think he's going to be a core member for the special teams coach, Michael Clay.
What about Sean Bradley? Is he carving himself out a spot in this roster? Because it seemed like he was really running a lot last night to get to the ball. It seemed like he was really, really putting in that extra effort.
Right, yeah, and he's someone who I think added some size, and he's another one, a very high football IQ, knows his assignments, knows where to line up, knows how to get other guys lined up. Not the most explosive player, doesn't have the most dynamic traits, but there's a spot on every roster for a guy like Deshaun Bradley, and he is a really strong third base player, so that alone will give him gives him an inside track to be that 5th linebacker, I would think. And I think Jacoby Stevens might stick as the 6th. I think they might be inclined to keep 6 there. But yeah, Sean Bradley really active. Like I said, smart player, flies all over the field, gives great effort, and that's really been the story throughout his career at Temple. So I mean, he's really carried that over throughout his the early stages of his NFL career.
Andrew, let's go to the secondary. I'd be remiss if I didn't first touch on your guy, Elijah Riley. You've talked up a lot. That interception to me was an incredibly impressive play. It seemed like he read the ball even before Dobbs even threw it.
Yeah, he stared down. Dobbs stared down Cody White, and Elijah Riley broke on the football. Watch saw it the whole way, broke on the ball, and that's sort of what he did at Army. He was a ball hawk at Army. He was all over the ball at in the East-West Shrine Bowl when I saw him there. Like I said, positional versatility, smart player, physical, looks a little bit stronger. I think he has the makings of a core special teams player. So I personally am not surprised that he went out there and delivered. And now Eagles fans are now starting to know who Elijah Riley is. He played in 2 games last season, by the way. But, I mean, I think now he's someone that's going to be the beneficiary of increased snaps along with Marcus Epps because Kayvon Wallace is obviously out. So I think that he has, based on youth and versatility and special teams upside, I think he's going to be one of those dark horses vying for one of those final roster spots.
How much does – listen, it's a part of football injuries, but how much do some of the injuries to guys who would be ahead of him enable him to maybe carve out that role? Because I would assume that, you know, if Kayvon Wallace was healthy last night, he's getting a lot of run in the secondary. If McLeod is fully healthy, he's probably getting more reps in practice. So how much is the benefit for him to have so many injuries for him to be able to get more of these looks?
Yeah, I mean, that's football, right? I mean, injuries are a part of the game, and then it's about when your number's called, are you going to take advantage of your opportunities? And guys have made careers out of situations just like that. Going out in the preseason, maximizing your reps, and making your coaches look smart for putting you in there and they start to see what you're good at and what you can bring to the table, and maybe you carve out a role that way. And I think right now Elijah Riley has proven that, one, he made a nice tackle on special teams, by the way, so that's another area. That's what's going to ultimately get him on the roster. It's not necessarily his play at safety, although you want to see that he can play adequately on the back end and not be a liability. He reads the football really well. He's got good eye discipline, tough physical guy, smart player, and I said he's got that corner and safety versatility. So as a 23-year-old, low-cost option, I think that he makes a lot of sense when they're sort of trying to configure that, but he's just one of the many examples of players who are sort of thrust into the lineup because of injury, and then it's ultimately what do you do with the opportunity.
Andrew Dicecco joining us, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, getting more deeper into the Eagles' first preseason game last night. Staying in the secondary, we know who Slay and Nelson are. We have an idea who Maddox is, but what did you see last night from Zech McPherson, Michael Jacquet, Josiah Scott, Kevon Seymour? Did you see some good stuff? Did you see some bad stuff? What did you see from those guys?
Yeah, McPherson showed what's really been the word on him all training camp, and every time that there was a completion in his direction, he was right there. He's always around the football. Again, he's another smart player, physical, scrappy, and he doesn't play like a rookie. He's very confident. If he gets beat, he comes back on the next play and competes. There's always that steep learning curve, particularly at the cornerback position when you're transitioning from college to the pros. But I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him. Just a fundamentally sound player, and I think he's going to start to see the field early because of how seamlessly he's transitioned to the pro level.
Now, of course, we know the next Eagles preseason game is next Thursday versus the Patriots, and they have inter-squad before, so it's almost like they're going to be getting almost 2 simulated games with the Patriots coming up. What is something that you want to see from the Eagles' next preseason game that'll help you maybe make a better decision or a better analysis of a certain group of players or a specific position group?
Maybe you want to see a little bit. You want to see Steven Nelson tested to see where they're at as far as a cornerback situation. You want to see some of the backup safeties because their Eagles are very thin there. You want to see if Marcus Epps can be that third safety, or if they need to maybe look elsewhere for that, because that's a very crucial role, I imagine, in this defense. Before that, I thought Kayvon Wallace was sort of primed for a Corey Graham type of role in 2017. So that's something to keep an eye on. The defensive line is as solid as there is in football, so you don't really have much there. And, you just want to see Jalen Hurts continue to progress, continue to make the right reads, deliver the football with accuracy, hone in on his footwork, and, the rest is going to, and most importantly, just get out of the preseason healthy.
Follow him on Twitter at Dicecco NFL. Check out all of his coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. He joins us every Tuesday and Friday here on the Sports Bash. Today we broke down here on Football at 4 Eagles preseason game 1. Andrew, great stuff today. Appreciate you jumping on.
You got it, Josh. Have a good weekend.
And, of course, Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and the Inside the Birds podcasting network. Dicecco will be back on Tuesday, of course, right here on 97.3 ESPN.